is Colin Cattell with Palisade Radio. Here on the line with us today is Ari Sussman, current Chief Executive Officer at Continental Gold. Ari has been monumental in developing Continental's Buritica deposit to over 5 million gold ounces at very high grade. Thanks for joining us today, Ari.
Thank you for having me, Colin.
Firstly, I want to start off and ask you what it takes to successfully build an exploration company through development and into production. You've proven yourself time and time again, most recently with Colossus Minerals and now Continental Gold, and this has been despite terrible market conditions. What is your key to success?
The number one key to success is people. Right? I steer the ship. I'm the one that sets the vision, but in reality, it's my technical team that I fund, goes out and finds high quality assets, and I give them credit for finding Buritica in Colombia. That's really what it takes. And then obviously access to capital in order to fund these teams to go look is the other key. But the last thing is drive. You know, I felt for many years this industry got lazy. And, you know, Colombia, let's take Colombia. I mean, I went to Colombia. I opened office in 2003 in this country, and I took a chance. I came down. I didn't know anybody. I engaged a lawyer who had some familiarity with mining, mainly in coal. And from there, relationships and doors opened. And that was how I got a start here. And that was really ahead of the curve.
Your focus over the past several years, as you've mentioned, has been exploring for gold in Latin America. But I'd like to ask you particularly about Colombia. Talk to me about the pros and cons of working in a country like Colombia, and maybe you can touch on what has been the most difficult obstacle to overcome.
Colombia is, let's start with the potential. You know, Colombia is one of the last frontiers in the world where elephant-sized discovery potential still exists in a jurisdiction that is supportive of mining. As many of your viewers know, or readers know, or listeners know, you know, Colombia suffered from a security standpoint for many years, but that led it to the opportunity. That is the big opportunity here. Little modern exploration has taken place. Security improved towards the end of the 1990s into 2000, 2001, 2002 period, and it's been improving ever since. As a consequence of that, you can now come into Colombia, a country like Colombia, and really focus your team on looking for minerals without worrying about some of the extraneous factors. Now, what are your challenges here? Because no one explored here in any great deal outside of the coal industry for many years, you know, there's not a lot of know-how yet in the country. It is coming. You're in an early stage environment from both a political standpoint with regards to gold mining, you know, to education level of locals in Colombia on how to build larger scale mines. But that's the opportunity, and you grow with it. And what we've seen here is in a country that's going on 42 years of freely elected right-wing government, we're seeing the law change and amend very favorably to attract foreign capital. And that's in polar opposite to what we see in most other places right now in Latin America. So that's the reason I think we're in the greatest place to be looking for large-scale discoveries. You know, and the obvious one is, from a geological standpoint, really is not that complicated. Number one, you have the Andes mountain chain continuation. We know how prolific it's been in other countries nearby, like Peru, like Ecuador, etc. But number two, you also have what they call a triple plate junction, which is the three tectonic plates that coalesce under this country. And that can be a good omen for elephant scale discoveries. We see that elsewhere in the world where some of the largest mineral deposits are found. This is a renaissance taking place in Colombia. You know, gold is the beginning of this, but I suspect moving forward we're going to see large base metal discoveries be made in this country as time passes.
I've spent a little time in Colombia, specifically in Medellin, where you're headquartered. Sure, there's danger, as in any city, but I felt quite safe. Talk to me about security overall, as this can be a major concern for investors when looking at Colombia. And you've touched on this a bit, but maybe if you can expand a little more.
Sure. I view Medellin as still one of the better kept secrets of the world, and hopefully it stays that way for some time now. I was in Medellin for the first time in the early 1990s, and at that point, it was a scary place from a security standpoint. As most of your listeners know, Pablo Escobar ran the city. It was under threats from various entities, and the rule was don't go out at night. In a short time frame, with the cleanup of this country, Medellin is now bustling. Security is not needed at all. You can go out socially in Medellin just like you can in most major cities in the United States and feel perfectly safe. And the economy, as a consequence, has been booming really over the last 10 years. Is the country perfectly safe everywhere? No, it is not. I know the media likes to sensationalize change very positively, but I think best estimates are about 75 to 85% of the country is safe, and 25 to 15% is not. Now, where do those unsafe areas exist? They exist in the very unpopulated rural areas. Eventually, they will all be cleaned up. I suspect in the next 10 years, Colombia will be as safe as any jurisdiction in the world from a security standpoint. But it takes time to cleanse the system, and you start with the populated areas first, then spread out to the less dense areas. The other key point is the last problematic group named FARC, a military group. There's a peace negotiation under process right now between that group and the government. I do not know if that will culminate in a resolution, but there is hope and there is a chance, and it's a very positive sign on the progress in the country.
Starting back in 2009, tons of money began to rush into Colombia, and I believe over 100 million ounces were discovered in a few short years. And now with the market downturn, Continental Gold is one of the only companies that has not seen its market cap get absolutely pulverized. Can you talk to me about this mini gold rush in Colombia and what you see moving forward?
Colombia has similarities to Peru in the early 1990s. Right? In Peru, we all know the story. The Shining Path were abolished and foreign mining capital started pouring in, and that led eventually to major discoveries and to major mines. But if you look back at the Peru model, the first 3 years of that rush didn't amount to a lot of success. There were, I don't know how many juniors, but a significant amount, and some majors, all ran into the alluvial producing areas of the country, where artisanal operations were successful, and most left post-Briex in 1997 out of money with little to show for it. And then the next wave of smarter money came in, and not so much smarter, there was more education on the geological potential, etc. And that's where we're at in Colombia right now. Everyone ran into the alluvial producing areas because that is where the limited knowledge of gold exists in this country, just like it did in Peru. And most are going home. They didn't find anything economic, and they're out of money and don't have a deposit. So I think Colombia, from an investment standpoint, is going to look significantly better looking 5 years out, starting today, than it did looking the last 4 or 5 years backwards. Now, we all know there's been huge success here. You mentioned the 100 million ounces. That's been found. That is true. I would caution that a lot of those ounces are not economic and probably never will be economic without some radical change in gold price. However, these were discoveries that were made from showings, from early stage showings. And, the monster of it is Anglo Gold with their La Colosa deposit. People estimate that project could grow to 30 plus million ounces, at relatively low grades over time. Our Buritica project, we're at, 5 million ounces in all resource categories. We're optimistic that the potential could take this to north of 10 million, and who knows what will come more. But we are confident there's a lot more of these in this country, and it's a race to get to them, to have teams together to get to them, and to have the money to exploit them, and that's what we're after.
Sticking with Colombia, talk to our listeners about progress at Continental Gold and any new exploration projects you've identified with a similar upside profile to Buritica.
Okay, Continental Gold has multiple projects in its portfolio, with the flagship being Buritica. And where is that project is at? As you mentioned, it's over 5 million ounces. We do have a resource due out sometime in February or March of this year, and we expect not only to show growth in the overall global number, but also growth in the measured and indicated category. In addition to that, we are advancing this project towards production, which we are hopeful will happen in 2017. And the way we're advancing that is we're really working towards a pre-feasibility study for early 2015. In conjunction with that, we're quite advanced on the permitting front. In Colombia, you need a mining license and an environmental license to produce gold. We received a new mining license for Buritica in March of 2013. That is a 30-year license, so we're complete that part. And then on the environmental license side, we were in a fortunate position that the project Buritica has a small-scale operating mine on site, so it had an environmental license already in place. And under Colombian law, only amendments to that license are required in order to reflect a larger mine that might be built here, subject to the usual 43-101 proof that the economics work. In 2012, we did a first amendment to that environmental license, which was filed in March of 2012. That covered, that allowed us, that the amendment we asked for was to allow us to commence underground development for a large-scale mine, as well as some road construction and other small items. We were approved on that amendment in August of 2012, so in a very short time frame. And right at the end of 2013, we filed the second amendment and final amendment, major amendment anyways, to this environmental permit. I don't want to give a timeline because it's government you're waiting for to approve, but it is the same agency that approved our first amendment in short time frame that has received the second one. And this is the final major amendment. Assuming we get granted on this, we will have the two major permits to produce gold on a large scale in Colombia. And for that reason, we're confident we will be the first large scale modern day mine built in this country.
Do you have any exploration stage projects in Colombia to touch on?
Yes, I do. As mentioned, we believe we're at the forefront of exploration in this country, and Buritica is the flagship and the focus. I'm the CEO of Continental Gold. However, Continental Gold has a rich portfolio of other gold projects under its belt, including a project that we're very optimistic on for the future called Berlin. In addition to that, Continental Gold has funded two private companies exploring for minerals other than just gold. And the one that's working out quite well is in the process of an amalgamation into a company which will be called Cordoba Minerals. There's a three-way merger going on. This is the culmination of this merger will result in a company that we believe has locked up the most prospective copper-gold porphyry belt in this country, in an area with excellent infrastructure, in an area with easy topography, and more importantly, in an area where two major open pit mines operate in close proximity. A discovery was made, a drill-based discovery was made on this project as announced in December. I believe the best interval for shallow holes was about 100 meters at 1% copper and 0.6 grams per ton gold, which for porphyry is high grade. And once this merger completes, there's going to be a raise, financing done of at least $10 million in conjunction with this. And let's see what happens. Guns blazing, the drills will start turning on the project. I will be the chairman of this merged company, representing Continental Gold's investment interest in it. However, it's being run and operated by a capable management team on a day-to-day basis.
One final question, stepping back a bit. I want to get your economic outlook for gold and copper at the macro level. Of course, with a high-grade deposit like Buritica, you're not quite as vulnerable to the market prices as some of your peers in Colombia, but where do you see the metals going moving forward?
Let's take gold first. I'm quite bullish on gold for the first time in a while. The conditions for gold to rise are stronger than ever. And the fact that it corrected, we can come up with all the reasons in the world. We can say it's because, the major mining companies weren't optimizing their operations and started losing money, and come up with reasons why there was a bear market. But I think it's a lot simpler than that. When you have something that goes up for over 10 years in a row without a correction for any length of time, it's overdue for a correction. And, the correction started in 2011. Right, we're now beginning of 2014. I think the correction is either run its course or is very close to running its course. And I think you go looking forward, the future is much brighter for gold. Copper, on the other hand, on the same hand, I'm quite optimistic on as well. You've had slowdown, in different countries of the world. I mean, Europe's very slow right now. The U.S. is, the United States is drudging along slowly. China's apparently slowing down. I mean, there's issues there as we keep reading in the paper. Yet the copper price does not go down. Right? If there was ever a period where we should have seen $2 copper or something like that, it was over the last 2-3 years, and the copper price stayed stubbornly above $3 a pound. I think that bodes quite well. So, if the world can get its footing on stronger ground and move forward in a growth mode again, I think you can see higher copper prices. But I think in the current environment, I think you're one of your worst case scenarios is current copper prices. And current copper prices, copper producing mines, good ones anyways, are making lots of money. Margins are very high right now.
Well, Ari, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I know you have a busy schedule, and hopefully we can get you back here soon in a better market.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity, Colin.